Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's grand podcast. It's a chat between two non-racists. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
This week we're going to talk about growing up, because I have been thinking about, and I think there's a sort of institutional idea, there's a societal idea that we all need to get serious at a certain age and stop being so frivolous and really, I mean, you're too sort of like a lot of the voice of the Jacob Rees-Mogg types is a sort of condescending, well, if you were grown up like me, you would understand that there's much too complicated for your tiny mind. But shouldn't it be a goal that we are able to be a bit childish and a bit silly and a bit frivolous as part of our day-to-day lives and not feel like we haven't grown up?
I think that's a very important part of everyday life. Not growing up.
Well, it just occurred to me this morning that, like, Sharon and I, we're just like two kids sometimes sitting there, just I don't know. It's not highbrow humour a lot of time. It's very stupid, and I guess it's nice because we're safe with each other to be like, you know. Sometimes I think we show each other the 10-year-old, you know. And also, but then also the flip side of that is, like, if you do have a bit of a falling out, like, the School of Life preaches this idea that when in those situations we need to remember to talk to the child and remember that it's probably the child that is having some sort of weird reaction, right? And so there's no point trying to talk to the grown-up at that point when someone's got, like, wants to sulk, you know.
That's a good point.
So there's lots. I think there's a sort of capitalism angle in all this as well. Like, you have to grow up and serve your overlords and stop worrying about what you want and your dreams.
I agree. I think remaining playful is also an act of civil disobedience. Because, you know, this idea, I think that's what stops you challenging authority. A small child, you know, this concept of what's fair, what's not fair, it's really strong.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that concept of I don't want to do that.
Yes, and why?
And that is my argument. It's not because there's no because. It's because I don't want to, and I think that's a really important part of being safe in life.
Yeah.
No.
And the idea that the condescending idea that growing up means learning that life isn't fair.
Yeah, that serves nobody but the capitalist machine.
Exactly. So tell me a little pithy story, Ivanka, for the start of the episode before we do the work. How's it going?
Should have written some notes again. I know what I should tell everybody, because they'll be noticing how amazing the sound quality is this week.
Yeah, oh God. Some inside baseball.
I upcycled a shutter and made it into a soundboard that's behind me. And it's covered in beautiful material with a Mexican cactus motif.
I thought it was a headboard for the bed, but now I'm realising, no, it's a sound thing. Is it just for audio? Is it just for acoustic? Disappointingly, I thought they were mushrooms, but then they turned out to be cacti. I'm seeing mushrooms everywhere. It's quite they're everywhere in my house.
The bonus element that we realised, because we've added this bed into the office, because we've realised there's enough space. And Nick made the bed. I made then this, but the purpose of a lot of that board was for sound. And then we realised, because we don't have a TV here and we always sit there peering at the laptop watching a movie, is that we can then make that into essentially a sofa. So it's also a backrest. So we can sit on the bed / sofa and watch a movie on a big screen in the office. How exciting is that?
Wonderful. In the office? Why are you watching movies in the office? This doesn't sound right.
Well, because it has a big screen. I'm not carrying my big computer screen into the living area.
Okay.
I watched Killing Eve.
Watch that. Is it actually
Killing
good?
Eve is great telly.
Is it?
It is.
Is it?
It is.
Is it?
It is.
Is it good?
It is.
All right. Well, we're looking for something, so I will report back on my findings, because I'm not sure that we quite overlap in our TV tastes. But let's see. I'll give it a look. We've been watching AP Bio, which is it's the premise is fun. It's a disgraced Harvard professor that ends up teaching some like high school kids, but he just walks into the room and talks about his own problems, and that's the lessons. Them trying to help him get back at his rival. I don't know what it's on, but that's the last thing we watched. Also, but Queer Eye was amazing, and my favourite one was the Disabled But Not Really episode. I think that's probably my favourite Queer Eye episode, and just, oh my God, multiple cries.
Well, I'll make one more telly reference. Nick watched What the Health this week.
Oh, what's that?
It's a documentary about... I should have mentioned this in the last episode, actually. It's a documentary about the food, meat and milk industry in America land.
Sounds gruesome.
It's pretty gruesome. It helps you understand why eating meat and dairy is not a good idea, especially if it's from an unregulated source, such as the whole of the United States of America. Nick was like... my cousin was also staying here. She watched it and she was like, I don't know what to eat now. I don't know what to eat. I was like, what can I eat? Is anything safe? Anyway, so that happened.
Okay.
Anyway, how are you, Michael?
Shall we? Can I? I've been working on it. This week I've been working on my happiness app. Like, what's the next iteration of it going to be? So I've done a big old brainstorm and some ideas that I wanted to do. But it sort of evolved a little bit. So what was interesting I noticed that us two, who are a bit of an iOS app powerhouse, they made Monument Valley, have basically made the next version of my app already, although they have missed out the random sampling, which I think is fundamental to the idea. But they've got some of the things that I was going to add into Happiness. So Happiness is my app that just pings you every day and asks you how you are, and then you rate your mood out of, plus minus 5 kind of thing, and then just sort of put write a diary entry and sort of add some tags in. And I saw that Us Two had made their own version, and they've got a bit more marketing behind it, and they have added in some cognitive behavioural, like thinking errors stuff into there as well, which was what I was thinking would be the next logical thing to add into mine. So I've been thinking about where I want to move it. But what I think has been most interesting about the happiness tracking for me is how when I make a change, it really helps me see that was a positive change or not. So when I quit drinking, my app, just the balance of it just went so much greener. I could just see, and now that just really cemented that decision in my brain as like a really good one. And also, I've had this thought about I didn't necessarily want to be always talking to sort of depressive people as part of my day-to-day life, because it does rub off on me. And I was thinking, well, maybe this isn't a CBT app. And it never was really supposed to be, but Us Two have gone down that sort of CBT route. But what I think is, I'm thinking more in terms of it's something like, let's make a change and just measure whether it worked, and also target it at people who are at that 55 grand enough money threshold, where they're realizing that there's more to life than earning more money, and that helping people in that search for meaning instead of actually trying to cure sort of chronic mental health problems, which I think it's a different sort of thing. So what I wanted to do, one thing was simplify the tracking, and I did realise that I want people to be able to do it on their Apple Watch as well, if that's the audience. So I just want you to be able to sort of swipe and you've got some data, because at the moment you have to sort of launch it and do a thing, even though it's quite quick. But I was working on the user interface sort of evolved, and then I was like, oh, hashtags, that's how you tag things, isn't it? So then I ended up with this sort of hashtag interface, and you can just rate each tag as happy, positive or negative, and then that gives me an awful lot of data I can graph. And then I was thinking, okay, well, that gives me an instant gratification mechanic, in that I can import your tweets and do sentiment analysis on that with machine learning and pull out all the hashtags, and then you can say, okay, Donald Trump got elected then, let's have a look. Watch how my mood changed, right? And do it around a month around it or whatever, 2 months, and then that would instantly give people like some insight, some data, because the problem with my happiness app has been that like, oh, well, you've got to kind of use it for a month or two before it starts to really have any value. But if I can import tweets, so that's kind of where I am now. And then I was thinking about data visualization, and I thought, do you know, what would be kind of awesome is if it sort of went into an augmented reality mode and you could sort of do a bit of an Iron Man pan around kind of solar system. And this is all stuff that I reckon can get me on that Apple stage, on that keynote stage. If I can pull it off. Well, that's the way to sell apps, is help Apple sell new phones, right? So as capitalist trap as that is, at least it would be something that. And then I kind of bring people into the mood tracking things. Like, yeah, this is your public thing, but actually, really, to get good data, you need to be tracking your private mood things, and you'll get better quality data. And I can do the same happiness mechanic with this kind of upgraded thing where it works on a watch, and it's a lot more sort of smart about how it does the tagging and things like that. And then I think you know, I've spent like 4 days thinking about it, and it's something cool is coming into focus.
I think that would be, it has the potential to be one of those things where everyone would just install the app just to try out that first thing. Yeah. You know, like in a positive, I mean that's a positive, and then that could well be quite a hook. Yeah. I'd be interested. Mine basically is all hashtag climate crisis. Or there might be like an evolution where it was like hashtag climate change, hashtag climate crisis, hashtag climate emergency, hashtag.
Yeah, you just want to see. But I just love the idea of kind of here's the point in time, and you can just set up multiple of those, and you can set like the range, and then like just kind of see, okay, did that work? And then you can, you know, and I think it comes from people have seen on Instagram that someone's made a nice chart of themselves, and people love charts of themselves. Anyway, so that's what I'm working on at the moment. Great. So feel free to steal my idea if you think you can handle it, because I don't reckon you can do as good a job as I can. So just try it. Although obviously ours two did do their version is a lot more polished than mine, but fine, whatever. I'm just one guy.
They had a team. I got a team.
Okay, so that's that. Yeah, been working on the app. The subject of sort of growing up, I have been suffering from this thing of, okay, I've got to figure out how to make some money, and I'm not getting paid reliably every day. So it is sort of harder to make time to procrastinate in the day when you're like, every single hour counts, and so I must be learning things all day. I've got to figure out how Swift UI works. I've got to figure out how Core ML works. And it's enjoyable as well, like to kind of learn new things and sort of spend all day trying to get something to work. But I just put in a new daily thing for myself, which is play for half an hour every day. So what I'm thinking is like after lunch, just play, like no stakes. Probably, you know, play some music. Play some. Do something that has no output. No purpose. Do something pointless for half an hour.
Just do something really pointless. Yeah, it's a good idea.
And that's another one of the things that made me want to talk about growing up.
One of my favourite memories of my dad was when we drove out of the former Yugoslavia, having left at 5 o'clock in the morning and packed our belongings and driven across. We crossed the border into Austria, and my dad he actually bought a bottle of Coca-Cola, which was a massive treat. And we all had free advertising. So we all had some Coca-Cola, and then he turned to the Yugoslav border and like smacking his head with it and going and blowing a raspberry. So it was like, we've managed to get out. My father was incredibly good at remaining playful and silly when life was a bit tricksy. And I think that's I think that if he's passed on anything to me, I think that's something I don't always pull it off, but it's definitely something I try to try to do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, that's in contrast to my upbringing, which I think the I was just thinking about it, like the patriarchs of my family were my grandfathers, I would say, were both serious men who it was all about business, and then I guess after work just get drunk kind of thing, just like low level alcoholism, just kind of fall asleep in a chair with a drink. That was kind of their. I don't know so much about my other grandfather, but like certainly I think that was. I mean, he was Irish, so sorry, I'm not going to say that. I don't know about my
racist.
I don't know about my. Yeah, I already promised that we weren't racists, so I'm not going to attribute alcoholism to ethnicity, country of origin. It was weird how that kind of filtered through my father having a lot of problems. Sort of those sustained unemployment, and it was ironic that I was being instilled with this. You've got to be serious, kind of. It's all very well, and I sometimes think I was more supported than I remember in like pursuing music and sort of. Quote, frivolous activities that don't mean anything, that aren't important, versus, well, make sure you study a serious subject and so that you have a backup plan and you can get a good job. You know, that's sort of that's the mission, that's the goal in life, and that's what really matters. All this other stuff is nice. It's a nice to have, but it's not important. And then it's sort of ironic that he spent so much of his time like playing Tetris and like actually doing completely frivolous stuff, just due to like this sort of depressive mindset, but at the same time imposing that kind of idea that this was worthless as well. I think like games are a problem because I don't know, like some computer games, it's like let's not sink too much of our time. When I talk about like play, I don't want it to just be mindlessly. Well, it's not mindless, but it's someone else is guiding you through it. It's not really a sort of creative, personal kind of...
Playing a game is not... I don't think... That's an interesting point, because as you've been talking about this, I've been thinking about having my very own 4-year-old gaming, playing coach who lives in our house, who's like... Yeah, and we do play with her. My parents played with me. I play with my child, and it's fun because she can make a game out of anything.
Yeah.
The other day we got some juggling balls, and she was like, right, you have to say which colour it's going to land on the rug. And suddenly we've got a game going, and we're taking turns and blah, blah, blah. But then I was thinking, because she's got quite into Uno now, is that what we mean by play? Because it's a card game, very popular with the children. She's got the junior version and the grown-up version. It's a card game. Anyway, it doesn't matter what the rules are.
Yeah,
Uno is a card game
that you can Google,
and that you can Google. That I probably don't know the rules well enough anyway. So because my child just changes them, going no, you can't do that, and she's not very competitive, which is quite entertaining. Anyway, so having this person in the house that plays, and that is her job. We do end up playing. Passing the ball. Playing.
Well, that sounds good.
Fun.
That sounds nice.
It's nice.
Going back to my grandfathers, I think it's sort of ironic that maybe there was a bit of a sort of, I keep saying cognitive dissonance. There was a bit of cognitive dissonance in my house around the importance of working and the fact that, my father was unemployed for quite a lot of my formative years. And that sort of just, I think, a lack of acceptance of the value of play and of the value of frivolity and the importance of that was something that probably made it very much harder to be in that situation. But the sort of most tragic story to me, and I will talk about it because I know that it's already been on another podcast. There's a Tim and Tom Solve Your Problems that my brother wrote into on The Complete Guide to Everything. I just randomly heard. And he talked about, like, he was a successful beatboxer in his 20s. So he was doing world tours. He was playing in Ibiza. He was, like, getting paid thousands of pounds for a show. Like, he was doing it. But he had, and I think they're between a couple of factors, but I think it was a bit like more show-off, crowd-pleasing, probably was starting to get a bit repetitive. But he sort of wrote into this other podcast and said, like, he got a flash of, like, I don't want to be 40 and all I can do is make stupid noises with my mouth. And on first impressions, it's like, yeah, I guess so. So he became a plumber, he retrained, and now he does that. I don't think he super. I mean, I think he obviously like doing something that affects your, that sort of rewarding in itself. And I think he's doing pretty well out of it. But I've just been thinking about like, I mean, wouldn't that be a wonderful coup in life if you could just make stupid little noises with your mouth for like a couple of days a week and then like do whatever you want? Like, why? What is it about our upbringing that was like? Why does everything have to be serious in order to be valid? And obviously, you're the wrong person to ask because that's not how you were raised. So
it's not really how. But I mean, on the subject. So I had music lessons.
Yes.
Always. I always had to have music lessons. Yes. I always had to be doing a sport, and I had to do well in school.
Yeah.
I didn't have to be top of the class. That was my driver. That was an internal thing. Yeah. But I did have to go do my homework. Do well in school. Learn. It wasn't really about homework. You have to learn how to play an instrument, because I didn't have the opportunities to learn how to play an instrument when I was a kid. I grew up in Wittenberg in Herzegovina. I was lucky if I got a stick to bang on a stone. Okay. All right, I'll go and practice. It's like and a sport, always something, whatever. It didn't really matter, and that was not competitive. It was just like, you've got to be fit and healthy, and you've got to move. And so, but there was always this art smart. You need to study something proper. Yeah. Maths. I wanted to do maths and philosophy. What's the point of that? You'll just end up being a teacher. You could do electronics. Now that's really interesting. And then you can, you can work anywhere in the world. Blah blah blah. And it's like, so this serious. But it was the having a proper profession. I think in my dad's philosophy was more about freedom. Yeah. Not about conform. He was not a conformist at all, and I think that some parts were positive, some were negative. I suppose I could have become really straight after having a father like that, just as an act of rebellion. But
I think he did it in quite into our like one way or another.
Yeah, I do. Honestly, I walk around the house. I'm like, shit. That's my dad would say that. Turn off the lights. No, we can't buy that. It's a waste of money. No, you don't need another one of those. Put it away.
God.
But yeah, I am my dad and my mum.
Sorry, growing up wise, and my mum. You're your mother.
Yeah. I'm my mum too. Don't worry, mother.
Okay. In terms of growing up, I remember this is something like my stepmom would say like every so often. She's like, I don't feel like a grown up. And you sort of hear that from someone 20 years old, and you're like, well, 25, 30. It's like I think there is something. Part of that is like, I didn't ever have like a rite of passage that sort of marked my transition from boy to man. And I think I would have liked something like that. Like I don't know, I was such a self-conscious, shameful teenager but I never got even like taught to shave or anything like that. I never really had any sort of milestone moments that were sort of like, okay, now you're a man. So I just had to sort of go, okay, well, I guess I am. Like at a certain point, I was like, I guess I'm a grown up now. I think the only one was like, okay, you got to leave, like leaving home and going to have to do my own laundry.
I think admin is a signifier of grown upness in my life. Opening my post. I don't like to open post. I leave it piling up. And then I go, oh shit, they've cancelled my company registration. To me, that is admin is my indicator. When I've done my admin, I feel very grown up. Yeah. When I've done paperwork.
Admin is...
It's so utterly...
That's something that we rewatched Marie Kondo. Like Sharon hadn't actually seen it. Like I'd watched all of them without her, but we watched them again, and a lot of that like is, I think the value of what she's offering is you turn this thing that's admin that you want to be over as quickly. Like the first episode is this family that have they're sort of so under pressure, and the husband's working like 60 hours a week, and the wife just feels too busy to do anything, and like as an attempt to improve things, it's like pays someone to do the laundry. Then they kind of go through this process, and now they've turned laundry from being an empty, time-consuming admin task into being something that they all do together, that they actually kind of do mindfully and sort of fold and put things away neatly, and that is a thing. And now I've turned my laundry into, instead of it's like, oh God, I've got to just take this stuff, just throwing stuff off the rack just into the drawer. I mean, I did pair my socks at least. I'm that enough of a grown up to do that. But now I'm like, okay, I'm going to take my half an hour off putting my clothes away, and I've turned it into a thing where I sort of open the window wide and listen to just be kind of like see the people walking past in the street and just kind of connect with that world a little bit more. I don't even put a podcast on, but I just sit there and sort of fold my laundry, and I turn it into an actual legitimate activity instead of a thing that needs to be just done as an afterthought, often while drunk. I think was probably how I did it in the past. Like, wait until I'm too drunk to do anything else and then just do the admin tasks then. Which obviously, that's the other marker of maturity, isn't it? I think the way we do it is just like, okay, now you're allowed to just get drunk. Now you're allowed to drink your problems away, and you're an adult now. You're a man. You can drink a pint of beer without throwing up over someone. Congratulations. It's not my favourite idea of it. I sort of when I quit drinking, and after reading this book and sort of looking at the world through the lens of someone that if you suddenly look at the world through the lens of someone who sees alcohol as a poisonous, addictive substance, then you kind of pass an off license. You see these temples to this poison everywhere. It's quite sad. And I was like, I wish our society wasn't so insistent that people learn how to tolerate this poisonous, addictive substance at a young age, as young an age as possible. And that is my anti-alcohol PSA. And that's, but it's like it's a shame that that's what we've got. And we don't have much else in the way of rites of passage for you are now a grown-up.
It's true. You're allowed to drink.
You're allowed to drink now.
I don't know. I think you're allowed to drink alcohol now. Now you're big. Now you're grown up. Now you're a big girl. So my daughter strives to be a big girl. When I'm a big girl, Mummy, when I'm a big girl, can I? No.
What are acceptable...
You're never going to be allowed.
What are you're never going to be a big girl. You just threatened your child with what?
Well, I'm never going. Well, every time I look at her, because there's lots of little children in the park, 6, 7 with mobile phones, and I'm like, look around you now, just so that you register it in your brain now. You're not getting a phone till you're 14, okay?
Ooh, 14.
That's what I'm going for at the moment.
Oh my goodness. If you don't have if your child does not have a GPS tracker on them before 14, I'll be amazed. Isn't that what a mobile phone is now? It's just a tracker for your child. Like, you will leave Find Friends turned on.
Yes.
What are the unacceptable childish behaviours? Like, I don't know. Like, it's when
running to the shops.
Running to the shops.
You're not allowed to run when you're a grown up,
aren't you?
It's not, like,
not
if you're dressed in your proper civvies, if you've got your PE kit on, then you can run. But if you're not wearing your PE kit, you're not allowed to run.
No.
Are you? You just look like a crazy person.
Yeah,
why is that person running to the shop in her sandals? Yeah, weirdo.
I used to always get home from school, and then our road was like a cul-de-sac, so I'd always just run the last bit because no one could see. But I would have happily just run a lot more of that trip if I didn't have to worry about being seen.
Yeah. I mean, why aren't you allowed to run? Why? I don't know. Again, I don't know. You're not allowed to run. I do play. Like, I play in the sea.
Yeah.
I don't. I think there is a bit of I care less and less.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find this balance between not embarrassing my child. It's like,
What do you...
like...
Yeah.
Because there's going to come a point where she's like, I don't want you to do that, Mummy, because that's weird and no one else's mum does that. But then also at the moment she's 4, so she doesn't care that much.
Yeah.
As long as I'm wearing a pretty dress.
Okay. But that's just made me think, like, is there like a hump of maximum seriousness, and then as you get older you sort of stop to care quite so much about all of those things that you get really fixated on in your 20s and like particularly 20s. You talk to a 26-year-old and they're just, I mean, maybe this is anecdotal evidence, but there's this like, is that the right thing to say? Is that right? Am I saying the right thing? Is my belief acceptable? Am I doing the right thing? Am I fitting in correctly? Am I doing like this utter anxiety about whether they're sort of conforming? And then I guess as you get a bit older, you start to get some confidence in, okay, no, I think this is right. This is wrong. I know where I am. But maybe the fact that maybe it is more of like, as you get older, you get to be more childish again. Because you've reached, and so I mean, I hate to break it to you, but I mean, I'm sure you're going to embarrass your child in so many ways that you can't even imagine.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's part of my job, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, would you be as embarrassing if you were like, 15 years younger? I wonder if what that looks like. Can you plot this on a curve and see, are younger parents less embarrassing because they've stopped caring so much about all the things that we're supposed to care about? Anyway, that's a scientific experiment for someone out there.
But I think, this idea of growing up and play. So you've also made me think about this. There's something about pointlessness and purpose. Like my sister's just finished this law degree. And everybody keeps asking her what she's going to do with it.
Yeah,
she's like, well, like, why did you do that? And I've been on the side of, it doesn't matter. You've learnt loads. You've enjoyed yourself. It was hard work. You've achieved blah blah blah. Who cares? It all come in. You will use it. We use everything we learn in one way or another. And I mean, she's continuing to the next stage of development towards being some, lawyery person. Yeah. When I say lawyer, people go, "What? You mean solicitor?" And I'm like, I genuinely don't know the difference. Anyway, somebody who does something professionally in the law department. She is, but I'm like, I mean, does everything need to have some aim?
Yeah.
Like, can't we just do it and enjoy it? And maybe playing as a grown-up is learning something sometimes as well.
Yeah, well, I think that's
something that maybe has no purpose.
It's very enjoyable to learn.
I wish I could
something.
Crochet.
You wish you could? Well, hey, you need to take the first step. Get a crochet pattern and a hook.
Yeah.
I've got so many.
I don't really want to. I've thought about it.
Look at this crocheted mushroom.
I'll leave that to Sharon. She can send me a crocheted mushroom. I want one.
You can look at development as your responsibilities, as like you've already said, like as you're very young, your job is to learn English and just play and just
but
sort
you
of
do
like
all
find
of
out,
those things through playing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then your job is to learn things at school, and then your job becomes your job.
Yeah, which is somehow we have defined work. I mean, we've had this whole thing, work as play. It's like, yes, if you're very lucky, you can make a living as a beatboxer and just make silly noises with your mouth, and how cool is that? But sometimes you also need different forms of play. Like, sometimes you might be playing at making an app, but sometimes you might just be playing your piano, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And both of those are equally valid, I think.
Yeah.
To a point.
Some people are a lot more comfortable playing. I think there's procrastination as play, like play as procrastination as well, which is not like where. But then I think it's hard to play when you have something you should be doing. I'm supposed to be writing a book, but I've just spent 8 hours playing Minecraft. That's not me, that's Dan Harmon.
I don't know about computer games. I don't, like you've already mentioned it, but that thing that you were saying about like playing a formal game, because they're kind of designed to draw you in, aren't they? Whereas a game of your own invention, like playing some music or throwing a ball against the wall. Because actually, do you know what? That is still quite satisfying. Bouncing a tennis ball and catching it is still fun when you're 45. How old am I? 44. I'm still 44 for a bit longer. But, it's still fun. It's still fun to play games.
I think the success of Minecraft is that it's not a structured game at all. It's like, here is a world. What do you want to do? So people make up games within Minecraft and play the games in that sort of virtual space. So that versus... So I've had... I'm going to tie this back to two bosses I've had in recent years who have sort of... admitted, I've found out they play a game, and the difference in respect I have for the different ones based on the game itself. And one boss was like this guy that I heard that he'd queued up from like 4 a.m. for the new World of Warcraft game, and I was like, I mean, if my respect for you wasn't high before, that's really like a nail in the coffin of me being able to take you seriously. Whereas a guy I was who was sort of managing me recently was telling me about his Minecraft mod. So I was like asking him, what's it do? What's this? And but it takes something to admit that you like a game, that you like doing something that's for kids. It's like you turn it into... So you can either turn it into a very serious activity, and it's so important that I have to queue from 4 o'clock in the morning and get the newest content. Or you can just be cool and just be like, I like doing this. I like Rubik's Cubes. I'm going to go on about Rubik's Cubes.
Yeah.
And there's something about... Well, I suppose maybe where I'm ambling to with this line of thinking is that turning something that should be play into something serious is a thing that certainly men like to do, and certainly I like to do. I can't help myself doing sometimes. I have to make... No, if I'm serious about music, I must not enjoy it. Or whatever it is.
But I think that I often refer to that as the Protestant work ethic. There's this kind of like, work is something that you have to do and it's punishment, and actually it's not. It's like, this kind of like making it all very serious, and it can't be serious. Like, you can have a lot of fun doing jobs, chores around the house. Like you brought up the laundry thing and all, you can have... It's a bit of an...
I think growing up is like the poisonous part of the sort of cultural idea of growing up is that it's basically a narrowing of your...
options.
A narrowing of your... what's the word I'm looking for? Horizons. Like, you've got to narrow your horizons right down to one thing that has to be very grey and involves a cubicle and not being happy. That's... Now you've grown up, and you've got to grow up and stop trying to be happy. Like, this is a narrative that is ruining lives all the time, because there is no reason that... And also the poisonous capitalist force of the more meaning you find in your work, the less it can get away with paying you. So, it just incentivizes meaningless, well-paid jobs over meaningful work, which, we've not... So just, like, grow up and stop. So, but then, like, where does that grow up and do something you hate fit into... I want to be a nurse. Like, you don't think about it in terms of grow up or don't grow up so much. You think of that more in terms of sacrifice yourself to the...
Well, I think it is more of a calling. I think there must be, like in any sort of caring professions, there's going to be a number of people who do it because it's a safe job, and there's always going to be work and blah, 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 with like that nursing thing. It's like my mum said when she went to see the careers advisor at school, it was like, you can be a teacher, a nurse, or a secretary. Those were her three suggestions, and it's like, so my mum became a teacher, but you know, it's that sort of, so there will be a touch of that. There'll be like in the, you know, in many developing societies, I don't know if it's true for most British parents, but, you know, they want their child to be a doctor, an engineer or a lawyer.
Yeah.
The Balkans certainly falls into that category still. So there's that element of nursey doctorate, but then there's people who just, that's what they want to do, and they're not doing it particularly because it will or won't make them money. It's because that's what they feel compelled to do in life. I suppose, you know, I don't know.
What is ironic is now, like, is that a lot more jobs exist in the sort of frivolous content creation than in those old professions. It's probably harder to get paid anything decent for them, but, you know, like, the world is, people are desperate for someone that can just think like a child, think playfully, kind of give their horrible business a sort of nice face. Like, that's such a valuable thing now, and it doesn't fall into the category of serious profession at all, but it's become much more important now. But that question of what are you going to be when you grow up?
I don't know. Apparently, depressingly, the answer at the moment most children give is a YouTuber.
Right. Well,
YouTuber has overtaken astronaut.
Shit, I'm trying to be a YouTuber. Well, kind of. Well, I mean, maybe they just like unboxing things. And look. YouTuber just means you do something you're passionate about and talk to people about it, right? So YouTuber, you still have to do something on YouTube. Passion. You still have to be interested in something. But I can see why people would say that. But like, there is, or like play games for a living is a weird thing that exists, but like we don't have any problem paying sports stars, like thinking about sports stars as legitimate celebrities that deserve lots of money. So why should we look down on YouTubers who play, you know, Binding of Isaac 10, you know, every day?
No, I agree.
But yeah, I'm sure we've talked about that before. But like, I don't necessarily think that's depressing. I think that's like, I would like to remain interested and get rich. There's always this thing like, if I want to do something that makes me loads of money. But I always, like, when I was a kid, I was like, I want to have a toy shop so I can have all the Transformers, you know. That was like my mentality as a child, and I'm going to play with them. I won't play with all of them, but you know, I wanted my job to be the thing that I was most obsessed with.
Most into. Yeah.
But also there was like, this would give me access to Transformers, so that's the job that I want to do. Or just like, you don't really know what's available as well. Like, you know, like at school they're not very good at like making you realise that this. So I didn't realise that I could even make a living in like doing what I do, like the web development type stuff, like software development things. I didn't really understand that was a thing. And then, I don't know where I'm going with this.
But then I don't think your teachers did either.
No. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, at school, certainly not. But it took me seeing someone doing a job with flow that was earning lots of money to go, oh, I could do a thing that has flow and earn lots of money too. And that's what kind of made me, you know, sort of jump into something that was lucrative. And probably a lot less clock watching than I was used to as well. Yeah.
I definitely jumped from engineering to programming because the wages were loads higher. You know, I did the first couple of years out of university still engineering-y, and then I was like, I just got myself a £6,000 pay rise. I'm doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I did have that moment of like, I've got this new job. I'm earning 4 times as much money, and now my little room in a house share is running out of space for drum kits and such. Like, you know, it's like, I guess I need to find somewhere bigger. And thus, the middle class trap snapped shut. If only I'd known to stay there for a few more years, a couple more years, not buy so much stuff. And then
it's been a whole different story.
I don't know. I think the story is pretty good. I don't mind.
But this sort of setting aside time for play.
Yes.
But I think it's also setting aside time to, like, not do. Like, you know, it's the same thing. I think in the context that you're thinking about, when you said, "Oh, I might, play my keyboard," or I might, it's like I'm just gonna for half an hour. I'm not really gonna do anything.
Yeah, and growing up is this idea. Why are you doing that? How's that going to make you a pound? How many pounds is that going to make you? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And then so many luminaries, so many successful people are always telling us you don't always know in advance why you're doing something. So you have to follow those passions. You have to play. You have to sort of do things that you don't know why you're doing them. I don't know, but it is very much like grown-ups are supposed to know exactly why they're doing everything they're doing, or they're not real grown-ups, which is very unreasonable.
It's this kind of irresponsible word gets thrown at you.
Right.
It's like if you're not doing that, especially once you have offspring, and then one is obliged to explain oneself more. So it's a or people feel that they are allowed to judge you more. It's like, well, but you are a parent. I wouldn't do that. I know, we've all got different...
What are you getting judged for doing as a parent?
Well, all sorts of... Like that woman, I mean, in the most extreme case, how dare you be on benefit when you have a child? You should pull yourself up by your bootstraps and sort your shit out and not be so feckless. The woman used the word feckless.
Right, sure.
Which, it's massive judgment. But then even like... parent to parent, there's no... like you're in a park, you're watching people, it's like... do you want me to pick your child up again while you're on your mobile phone? I'm terribly judgy about people who come and sit in the park on their phone. Phone away, play with your child. It's playtime now.
Right.
You're here.
So you're saying you're the judger, but more than the...
I am a judger of that 100%. I try really hard, like going, but I do, but I'm like, put your phone away. But then there's things like people do now. Well, what do you mean? So you might not be sending her to school in September? No. She's 4.5. She's going to be 4.5 in September. She does not need to go to school. Yeah, but what about like losing her space in a school? Well, we'll deal with that as and when. But right now, I think the best thing for her is to run around a village playing football and jumping in and out of the sea and learning Croatian. And that's what she's doing, and it's brilliant to watch. So it's those kind of judgy things. Like, what do you mean you haven't got a proper job?
Right.
You're both freelancers. What? How does that work? Well, how are you making a living? What? It's all that kind of...
It's like
crap.
People underestimate... I mean, it's like, I'm in charge of how much I care about looking after my child. Yours is probably not going to be quite on my level, right? Like, I am probably the one that is going to... I don't know. I just think back to, like, a lot of my thinking comes back to Louis C.K. But just hearing about, he was like 42 or 41 or something, and then had a kid, and that was the thing that really propelled him to sort of really sort his routine out or whatever. And actually, that's when he sort of started to make it as a comedian properly. I mean, he'd always been working, but that was where he really managed to break through somehow. And it's like, it doesn't really matter whether it's a proper job or not. Like, the fact that you are now responsible for a child will propel you to kind of... it's going to cut out some slack. But also, I guess it sounds like you get your play, a lot more play at the same time. So it sounds win-win to me so far. Don't know.
Well, I think I thoroughly recommend it, but then I'm in a glorious position of being able to earn money without having to work 80 hours a week.
Yeah,
so I can feed and clothe my child and put a roof over her head. That's the minimum. As soon as you've achieved that, then you can play.
Yeah.
But the other indicator of grown-upness is like coming home from the beach. Everyone's tired and everyone's hungry, but it's your job to make the snacks because you're the grown-up. Can
I just kind of rewind back to that throwaway statement that you're not allowed to play until you've paid the bills? Because is that a false economy?
True.
Like, is that I think if you could get so tunnel vision, if you never allow yourself to just kind of step back and, like, even if you're not working, I think it's like, for me right now, it's like I'm in that kind of situation. It's like I do not know where any money is coming from yet. Like, maybe £100 from Apple, like at the start of next month. Like,
okay, oh yeah,
like,
that
do you know
was
what I
a
mean?
throwaway
Do you know what I mean? Like, I know. So, like, I am very much sort of in danger of slipping into that mindset of not allowing myself to play unless my basic requirements are covered. But I think actually playing will allow me to do more things that will help me sort of see, because it's just that thing of like, I'm going to sit down, I'm not going to leave my desk all day, but like you just leave your desk for 5 minutes and you have like that lateral thought that means that you're not going to just kind of go down that tunnel, wrong rabbit hole.
Okay,
right?
well, Michael, thank you for challenging me on my throwaway comment. I think it's good because actually, I think I didn't really. I think I was off the back of your Louis C.K. example. Yeah. Having this responsibility for somebody who cannot care for themselves. Is a sort of, it's a great source of concern and sleepless nights and all those kind of things like, oh my God, how am I going to achieve these basic, I've got to keep it starts with, is it breathing? I promise you, like every 5 minutes, is it breathing? And then it's like, oh my God, what is it eating? Is it eating the right thing? We've managed to keep the baby alive for another day. Woo! It really is.
I was like proud of myself for keeping a child alive for an hour. I was like, oh my God, is it going to be okay? Anything could happen at any moment.
So it's absolutely a constant source of anxiety that you have to learn to live with and have to learn to place. But in the same way, and I think this is one thing my parents did do for me, is they did still play. It doesn't matter what was going on in their lives, they took the time to play with us.
Yeah.
And I think there has to be that bit. But I don't think this is true just of parents, because everyone goes, well, as a parent and as a mother, I don't really mean. I'm just trying to kind of.
I've awakened emphatic Ivanka with my challenge.
I've got my wavy hands up.
There's the sort of hardness of the voices come in. When listen, everybody, we're not telling you off. Ivanka's not telling you off. Just me, for some reason. I don't know what I said. I was just like trying to protect my own sanity.
I'm not telling you off. I'm not going to. But I think that this is where, and I think what your challenge has made me do is realise the moments where I teeter towards that woman who's saying, no, feckless parents shouldn't get help. You know, it's not that I literally teeter towards them, but I think there's something inside all of us that says, well, hang on a minute, how can you what are you doing down the pub spending that much money? Or what are you doing with a cigarette in your hand? Or what are you doing with those things when you've got responsibilities? Yeah. And I think that everybody, no matter their circumstances, has a right to time off and play. In conclusion, I've now come to a self-realisation of what I believe is a human right. Yeah. And I think a human right to playfulness is crucial to our survival.
These conservatives that will point at people in poverty and it's like they're not allowed to play. But don't you have a holiday every weekend? No. Don't you go on weekend breaks every week? Why aren't they allowed to relax ever? Like that's a... And then it is a shame that... relaxing gets coded as I'm going to do the thing that messes my brain up so I couldn't work right now even if I wanted to. Like, it's a shame. And I think that was the trap that I fell into for a long time, was that play was smashing that bit of my brain up so that I didn't really have my faculties anymore. So that was how a lot of us play in this world. And it's not... I can recommend alternatives. Like, we don't need to do that.
But I think that's... I think that's a separate point, like what we consider to be play. Because I read this other interview with a father and son, grown-up father and son, who had lived on a beach in Hastings. They'd been homeless, living on a beach in Hastings for a number of months. I don't know if you came across your social media feed. No. But the dad had basically been a caretaker, earning $9,000 a year, so not a great amount of money, but there was some accommodation involved. And then he lost his job because the football club got bought. Anyway, his son and he ended up as a tent being their option for accommodation. Right. And he said, and we did go to the pub, and people might judge us, but it was warm, and that's where we found out about a lot of work. Yeah. So, it's like, because he sort of felt...
Yeah, but you still got to, like, it's still always got to be put back into terms of, well, but it did have a measurable benefit. I am allowed to do it. I must defend it in terms of being able to find a job.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, actually what stood out in that article to me was this bit where he was like, and people may say that the what was I doing in the pub when I was in such dire circumstances, but it's like
humans need, they astronauts, they need 8 hours sleep, 8 hours work, 8 hours play, right? Like that's just a human need. But here's a campaign I would like to launch as we finish up this episode. Is I mean, and this is probably more from me than you, but wouldn't it be nice if we could be more accepting of childish play instead of feeling like as soon as we turn 18, only grown-up play, aka drug abuse, is an acceptable form of play? Like, let's let people do more childish play. And actually that would probably help the people that are wasting like loads of money in the pub. Just let them like muck about and do silly stuff without feeling like, well, you could be working right now.
I mean, what you're really saying is more fart jokes.
I mean, so many fart jokes in my house. It's just oppressive sometimes.
I think every house... I think that's the truth. This is the bit we all hide from each other as we're grown-ups, that every house, every healthy household in the universe is fueled by fart jokes.
Just fueled by fart jokes.
Just fueled by fart jokes.
Just does not stop.
It's cross-generational. It just works.
And there we have
it's
it.
Inclusive. And that, my friends, is the life philosophy from Michael and Ivanka.
There you go.
More fart jokes.
All right. Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. If you like the podcast, you can go to grandpodcast.com or just keep listening. It's every week. We do it every week. Imagine that. Sustaining that. This is like our 90th episode recording. Can you imagine doing something 90 times? So 90 hours of me talking about things on the internet, that's got to come back. And anyway, where can
wonder about that.
Where else can people find you, Ivanka, other than this podcast?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com and keep track of my app progress, maybe. I don't know. It's a really old website, goodtohear.co.uk. That's what I'm focused on at the moment. Bit of blank state. New video coming out to save the environment. Might be out by now. I don't know.
We don't know.
Just waiting for reviews. And then maybe we'll get some momentum behind saving the world in that regard and some Patreon support and things. Anyway, so there's that. If you want to just support the podcast directly with money, that's the easiest thing to do, isn't it? All this sharing and showing that you like something, that sounds like a lot. But $1 a month on Patreon, no one has to know. No one has to find out. And then we get to feel buoyed. You get to add a bit of social proof to our Patreon. We thank our Sharon and we thank our Annette. And you can have your name in this list. Just, you could be the third name. It's going to be awesome. But if that's not your thing, what do you reckon, Ivanka?
If you could write us some ratings and reviews on any platform that you listen to this delightful podcast on, then that would be simply marvellous and would help us a lot. And tell your friends.
Thank you. And just thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye. Arrivederci.
Bye.